Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi barakatuh, my dear brothers, sisters, friends, and the foes out there, and welcome to another episode of the Blood Brothers podcast with your host, Dilly Hussain. Before I introduce today's guest, I want to remind all the avid podcast listeners that you can find this episode on all 3 seasons on all the major audio platforms. And if you're tuning in via YouTube, don't be cheeky. Remember to click subscribe, leave a comment, like this video. Today's guest is someone very exciting. He's joining us from Pakistan on his first UK tour. He's a motivational speaker, a life coach, a da'i, and he has a massive growing online in terms of his podcast and his YouTube channel. There's a lot more that can be said about him in terms of his accolades, and that's none other than our dear brother Sahil Adeem. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
Sahil bhai, how are you?
I'm great, and how are you doing?
I'm good.
Awesome.
I'm excited to have you on.
Alhamdulillah, this is me too. I'm actually kind of jittery.
Don't be jittery. I rarely buy new clothes for guests. This was a new t-shirt. Was it not, Jamal?
Yeah, it is.
I cut it everything. I didn't even iron it. Straight for Sahil bhai.
Awesome, alhamdulillah, man.
Because the believers are a mirror of one another.
Oh, mashallah. That's why I'm against this word motivational speaker. Back home where I come from, actually not just there. It started from America and all of that. This craze about motivational speaking. This is one of those things that I'm actually trying to stop.
Why is it associated with you then?
Because whoever is holding the mic and with a bit of a mix of English and Urdu, they're called motivational speakers in Pakistan.
Do you motivate the Muslims?
Actually, at the condition that we are in right now, I'm actually trying to demotivate them out of the situation that they're actually so happy to be in.
Oh,
you know what I'm saying? So more of a, I'm actually reversing the whole life cycle.
Let me kick off today's podcast by a few warm-up questions.
Sure.
They're called quickfire.
Uh-huh.
And the reason why they're quickfire is because I intentionally would like you to keep the answers brief, and I want the responses to be instinctive.
Ooh, okay.
So, I'm going to mention some celebrated figures from the Indian subcontinent, and I want you to tell me your instinctive feelings or thoughts of them.
Okay.
Dr. Israr Ahmed.
Oh, love.
Allama Muhammad Iqbal.
Light, literal, like the torch.
Abu Ala al-Mawdudi.
Oh my God. Inspiration.
Muhammad Ali Jinnah.
Father.
General Zia.
Puppet.
Tahreek Labbaik Pakistan.
I cannot quickfire this one because I'm still reading up to it because recently I was asked this question. I didn't even know much about this.
So what's the instincts?
Good lads, don't know much about them.
PTI.
Okay, with the TLP because this is democracy we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm totally an anti-democracy guy. I think that's going to be the bigger part of our discussion today.
Yeah, absolutely is. So where does PTI fit into that? Because PTI,
I'll tell you. Instinctively, I like PTI in a way that they've made the bigger change in the kind of people in the kind of age group that I want the change to happen. So they broke the idols.
So there is some room or space for democracy then.
No.
But they used that system to make those changes.
No, actually, because of this system, that change cannot happen, and even if they are together, if any other system was herding them into a group or a direction, it would have been awesome.
Jamaat-e-Islam.
Again, if democracy was not there, this is the only real set of people with enough academic and intellectual vigor, but democracy is ruining them as well.
Jamiat Ulama Islam F. I think that's Fazlur Rahman's gang, I think.
Yeah, no, I know who they are. I know. I just don't know why they're there. See, now all of these people are well intended. I'm just thinking they're inside a bigger confusion bubble of confusion, which is called democracy, and we've been sold this as one of the solutions.
So let's look at one other group outside of that bubble. The Taliban in Pakistan, not the IEA. The Taliban in Pakistan.
Yeah, I think they're created by some internal Pakistani political force because they don't really represent anything that and I speak to the Taliban. This TTP thing, it's not real. It's more of a political pawn in the local Pakistani game. It's not even close to a religious movement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not. I said no.
So all of this nicely leads me to the very first question to open today's podcast, and that is, Pakistan ke matlab kya?
Yeah, Pakistan ka matlab now, alhamdulillah, is la ilaha illallah. It's been a while since this turnaround has happened. Now it's happening, alhamdulillah.
You sound very optimistic.
I am, because I see the landscape with the kind of lens that I wear. I see behavioral patterns. I see consistency. I see celebrities which were never going to exist in the last generation. I'm not talking about far away in the past.
Mm-hmm.
In the last generation, wouldn't even look at a minute of the kind of people that kids are reading, books and volumes of content is being consumed from names that you mentioned. Dr. Sarai is one of them. Mm-hmm. He's the one who set the, Maududi is the guy who actually, I think it's, if I had to mention someone other than Jinnah Iqbal,
sure.
He would be Maududi.
Really?
He's the guy. Yeah. He has raised the IQ of the whole generation, like literally, by 10, 20 points. And I'm not just talking about any IQ of general skill, life skill. I'm talking about Islam. He's given that kind of sense that regular Joes in universities with who cannot really understand the bigger political system can still make sense of an Islamic solution inside Pakistan. This is, may Allah have Rahma on him, and
Ameen.
May Allah raise his ranks in Jannah, inshallah.
Ameen.
This guy is this is the guy.
So what would your response be to the fact, I would say, that there is still a strong minority, at least amongst the ruling elite, which are very secular, vehemently pro-Western? Are you telling me that does not exist in higher education institutions in Pakistan?
No, I have a different take with this. Let me tell you what's going on. In Pakistan, or in the classical Muslim mindset right now, majority of the Ahl Sunnah, the doctrine itself, which was given to Muslims as in the name of Islam, is secular. Any guy who you're ever going to meet is going to be secular in the name of Islam if he's a Muslim. These guys who don't really understand Islam that well were trained from the West or wherever they got it from, which you're talking about, the elite of politics. The fact that Muslim with the beard, with the Quran in his hand, with enough knowledge, is using that knowledge to stay away from politics is the bigger problem. And they're getting this from, literally with the Bible. This is Matthew 22 they're actually using.
Render to Caesar what belongs to Caesar.
Otherwise, Muslims should have been taken in. This is why Maududi. Why do you think I like Maududi so much? I'm putting Maududi on the pedestal of Jinnah when it comes out to Pakistan, because he's the only guy who rationalized the use of, or he put the word dominance inside the mind of a Muslim, that we have to dominate and control the system, even though I don't really agree to it. The technique he used, democracy, of course. But he did the kind of chessboard he had. He played whatever he could with the kind of pieces he had on the board. But classical Muslim right now, he actually believes in Matthew 22. And someone somewhere started this, because this is literally going against every single, this is causing way more problems. And the biggest problem the Muslims right now, from Tunisia to Indonesia, is that the classical Muslim mind, that madrasa trained guy with the Quran and the Hadith and the Sira, is never going to come into power. He actually evades coming into power. And then he keeps, yapping about how bad the political elite is from any country. You pick them. Mm-hmm. And then you find out what's the masjid doing. Masjid is not doing anything. Ever since October 7th, last year, I went from Australia to everywhere going with the single campaign that the masjid has fallen, because the only solution was coming, or supposed to come, from the masjid. And that is to mobilize the youth into political dominance and gain back the power.
Why are you then so optimistic on the one hand, in terms of what you observe as a sentiment gravitating towards Islam, but at the same breath saying the masajid have lost it. The students of knowledge, maybe even some scholarly class, even though we don't have these terminologies in our tradition. How are you both optimistic but also saying that they failed?
Well, the kind of movement is that's an amazing question, because psychologically speaking, I can draw the patterns, and anybody can, of where the youth is actually trying to do their math. What kind of drawing boards are they using? They're using the Islamic drawing boards, but they're running the political equation now. And Maududi has a direct role to play with this. It's not just Maududi, because you're missing out on some few other names who are actually Maulana Ishaq. You should read into it. Of course. He's not going to be in English. He's going to be Punjabi and Arabic only. These are the kind of people who really injected that, that sense that, we need to take up real positions of political power and, intellectual acumen. That's the movement I'm actually carrying to all. This is why I'm in England. So the kind of age group that is in university campuses and, in other places where they're in their 30s and, early 40s and literally teenagers, they're clinging on to this sort of a content where they're actually debating, and they're actually, coming in thousands, literally thousands when I'm, in Pakistan. This has never happened before. That's why I'm hopeful. And if we can change the source of the definition of how a Muslim youth is supposed to present himself to the world, then, then it's game on.
Let's look at, because you mentioned Maulana Maududi rahimahullah, you've mentioned him. Now let's look at perhaps, I'm from Bangladesh. My parents are from there. That is my heritage. We were once East Pakistan. Many critics of this model, many critics of the claim that Pakistan ki matlab kya la ilaha illallah, that the first attempt at this project was a failure. Now, without drawing onto nationalist strings, because this is not something we want to really exacerbate, it's not good. But let's still look at the historical point. Why did this project called Pakistan, which was supposed to be a safe place for the Muslims to practice their faith, for their deen to be preserved, why was it hard to maintain its eastern wing?
Okay, let me just try and be as brief as possible. When Jinnah had to lead a movement, he had to lead the movement of the mass. The mass was emotionally religious. But Pakistan, Bangladesh, India, the Muslims, and still the Muslims are at the lowest of the hierarchy of social at the social structure. Now, if you have to lead a mass which has absolutely no resource, you need those kind of political pawns which have some sort of a resource, power, money, influence, and those are the people, and still they are people who are not religiously tuned. They were businessmen, they were nawabs, and they were people of good and big enough networks. They were connected with the whites, and so on and so forth. So I would have done, and Jinnah did what anyone would have done. That since the religious mass does not have any dime to spend, but they have the religious emotional thirst and the drive, I need the middle layer, which is absolutely not religious, but needs some sort of a position of power. Because they're still in power. Mm-hmm. So he had to get the mass a separate country, a platform, and finance it and mobilize it through the power and the structures that he already had to play with. Now, from Liaquat Ali Khan to Imran Khan, these people don't represent the mass. They don't even represent the religious acumen or the thirst or the emotional attachment of Islam, which the regular mass has. But if you had to play now, even if you have to play now in Pakistan, I won't be able to play with the religious, clusters because they will not have the money for it. And I need to fuel this machine. So I'm not saying Jinnah, played a wrong hand. He was dealt these kind of cards, and he had to pick from, whatever he's dealt from, and he played a good hand. Now I know it was, if I go back in time, I can't even think of an advice to give to Jinnah that, what, this is gonna turn out a more of a shenanigan of a very secular nation. But he'd be like, tell me what else to do, because we're talking about 400 million Muslims now in Bangladesh and Pakistan combined.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They're free from all those structures that English and the Indian Hindu was naturally going to, exert upon us.
Their masajid are safe. They can slaughter cows for Eid al-Adha.
Yeah.
They have many of the ritualistic practices preserved.
Well, that's just a byproduct. The first thing and the only real thing that they actually say was our next generation to actually mobilize themselves into, a global power. Inshallah. And that's the gift that Jinnah gave.
So why did Bangladesh fail? Well, I mean, why did East Pakistan fail?
Again,
because I know it's a highly sensitive topic.
No, most of the Pakistanis.
How did they, from your interactions, how did they see the events of 71 or the build up to 71?
Well, again, it's going to happen again if the same sort of structures keep on, it is the lack of understanding of people like, in my age group, that unless we mobilize and we give enough intellectual resource to the mass, these people who are going to be in power will always remain in power. And if any one of them has a self-serving interest, he'd sacrifice any one province. Bengal was just one of the provinces. Balochistan would be next. Kashmir would be next in line. Whoever has, whatever to gain for his own self. It was a one man's selfish interest that, we actually went through whatever we went through. Otherwise, everybody knows what happened in the elections.
Would you when he won the
everybody knows. I mean, nobody can deny that, there was an overwhelming majority that, Mujib had. And it just happened so that, a few people, 2 or 3 families in power could make that decision. That power should not be with this sort of a system. That's why I'm against democracy, by the way. Just because somebody has that sort of power is naturally going to corrupt a guy with absolutely no acumen of Islam, so no sense of personal justice. So this is a one man's decision that you and I are calling each other from across the flanks. Otherwise, Jinnah would be as Jinnah for you as I think it is. Yeah. He is,
So how do you reconcile with the fact that on the one hand, every single Muslim country that exists today, there's 55 or 57, are in reality secular nation states?
That's a different question. Yeah. See, that's the question I asked, because in Pakistan...
So how do you reconcile that with Pakistan ki matlab kya la ilaha illallah? Are you then saying that is the general sentiments of the people, but it is a sentiment within the framework of the secular nation state, and you're trying to change that?
Two types of Muslims, okay? The general Muslim is an emotional, superstitious Muslim. That's la ilaha illallah for you. They want the masjid to be free. They want to pray. They want to, slaughter their own. They want to eat halal. They want to cover themselves without any restriction. That's your general 5 pillars of Islam. That's general Muslim mass.
The average Muslim, yeah.
Yeah. And that, to me, is not all of Islam. Actually, that's not even the start of Islam. Okay? We need a powerful Muslim system to keep these 5 pillars alive. You know what I'm saying? And that power pillar was never with the Muslim mass, because that Muslim mass was driven by, whatever was left from the whites and the Nawabs and Uber, doing whatever they could to please the white, government of Victoria at that time. But now 57 states, we're not going through Victorian rule, right?
No.
The problem here is that the commonality between the Pakistani and the Desi Muslim mass and the regular Muslim in Arabia and North Africa and Indonesia is the fact that we are trained to be secular. Islam is not secular.
Absolutely not.
You know what I'm saying? The Prophet ﷺ is literally, the first sunnah is politics. After Nabuwa, the first sunnah is politics. Mm-hmm. And Muslims are trained not to go into politics. So, if you're not going to lead the prayer, someone is going to, take over. This is just a simple rule of thumb. And they did. And now money determines in Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, money determines who's going to lead the house. Literally, money.
So PTI had no realistic hope in establishing Riyasat-e-Madina?
I'm amazed that you even heard the word, because this is not a word which Pakistanis know. They meant it,
Yeah, but they claimed it whilst coming into power.
Listen, the regular mass is emotionally, superstitiously tuned into Islam. Yeah. So this word really sells.
Riyasat-e-Madina.
Yeah.
The society of Medina, the first Islamic state of Medina.
Yeah, and I want to believe, because I believe that Riyasat-e-Madina is the only Riyasat that is going to work.
Can Pakistan be that riyasat?
Yeah. Any population, see, these two structures have to be intact and linked. The general mass, which is never going to be, all academically correct and knowledgeable and all, because that's general mass. That's why you call it general mass.
Absolutely, laity.
Yeah. If we give them these four resources as moral capital, the mental capital, their knowledge sets, their political capital, and their financial capital to raise, there you go. You got your Muslim to create their own structures of power, and not just create a new structure, just take back the structure wherever they're from. Actually, my movement right now, the Awakening Tour, is to create or get people aware of these four structures, because overseas Pakistanis, Bengalis, and Indians.
Elaborate a bit on those four then. You spoke about the four. Elaborate on those four. What does that look like in terms of practical terms?
Yeah, there's two stages to it. One is three stages. One is the current stage, okay, where we know the landscape around the 57 countries of, not just the whole globe, wherever the Muslims are. Mm-hmm. And then the transitory state. This state is where the teenager right now is going to take power of whatever he's going to do in whatever career he's going to make in the next 20 years. We need that teenager right now envisioned and well-grounded in that vision to take these four pillars by design, okay, and establish competence in these four pillars, measurable, get the financial independence, political capital has to be established.
What does that mean? Because a lot of people will think that's ballot box.
No, it's not. That's exactly what.
But I'm telling you, a lot of Muslims in the West will think when as soon as they hear politics, they will think political engagement, voting, ballot box, lobbying, block voting.
Mark Zuckerberg did not have a ballot box backing him up, but he still called the shots in the U.S. elections. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that's exactly what I want. And it's not just social media. I'm talking about real network. Okay, because if you have the political capital, and I'll tell you how to get that in, we have naturally the biggest platform for the financial capital as well. So let's just do the math on the Desi Muslims only for now, just as a test case.
Oh, we're a massive group.
Yeah, that's why. We actually are the biggest Muslim group.
India, Pakistan, Bangladesh.
Yeah, no, but the strata I'm talking about is the overseas.
Oh, the
overseas Bengalis and the Pakistanis.
Third, fourth gen.
Yeah. No, yeah. No, well, you're talking England only, right? I'm talking about globally.
Okay.
Because in Australia, it's the first gen Bengalis.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So I just came from there. They were like, we don't.
Sorry, I assumed everyone arrived in the 60s like us.
Yeah, that's not it. That's why, I keep telling the Melbourne Muslims that, I'm going to England because that's the center of the overseas Muslim movement. Because you guys are not half and half. You guys are not confusing the Desis in English. You guys are as English as King Charles, right? Even more sometimes.
We are the oldest diaspora community in the West.
Yeah. Hence, your generation is not going to have that kind of cognitive dissonance from the Desi culture versus the English culture. You can actually drive the movement without having that, superstitiously defined, emotionally meshed up version of Bengal, Islam, and England combined together.
Basically an identity crisis.
That is the dissonance, right? So what I need is a very confident group of people. I'm talking about kids. I'm talking about from 14th year till the 24th, 25th year. That 10-year strata, so that we can actually envision very clearly that they need to gain power in money. They need to be very competent, okay? It's not a fluke, and it's not a Jewish lobby that every Jewish product is actually performing really good, okay? They actually have competent machine that works. Let's call a spade a spade. Their processes in their companies are, really well. Just like Japan. Japan is not a Jewish lobby established country.
They're just methodically very efficient.
So, we need that sort of competence. Just like that, let's just come back to the political capital.
The Gulf countries have those, some would argue. They would argue. They'd say the Turks have them. The Gulf countries have them. Processes, modernity, what you're describing in terms of how efficient the Japanese are. They'll say that them elements of work. I'm just trying to play counter here, Sahil.
I know. And I'm trying to actually counter or rebut you through a technical answer.
Some would say the Turks are administratively some of the best in the world.
Well, they better have to show something for it because, Japan has. I mean, it's not just Six Sigma and, your regular management spiral that actually brings, the finest possible products out of Japan. It's the product that actually talk for themselves. Give me top 3 or any 3 products coming from this part of the world which you're
I can't
talking
think
about.
of any.
Yeah, because there aren't any, and I'm sure there are some, but
Not
they're-
top 3.
Yeah, they're not in the landscape because they're missing out on the propaganda of these sort of processes. And Japan, by the way, never markets these processes. We market Japan's processes. Okay, I mean, you can not name any one man from Japan, but you can name 100 companies on top of your head. This is how the consumer or the base itself markets the product. So this is something which Muslims are missing. I'm telling you this. I mean, we're Desis. We know it firsthand. Anything that a Muslim touches, he ruins. Okay? I'm talking about the quality of the product. You and I are Muslims and we are enthusiasts. We're actually dais. And we ourselves are never going to buy a Muslim-made product because we know it's going to suck.
Well, there'll be something wrong with it.
Yeah.
We get
Even the
down on
movies,
something.
those cartoons that they make for the kids?
Yeah.
Even there, it's like, how do you ruin something which is going to come out of a computer? It's like, how do you ruin the colors of a software? It's that bad. And so it is coming from the seep from the last generation. The lack of understanding of the standards. Okay, and I'm talking about Japan specifically, so that it doesn't become a Muslim Jew or a Muslim Christian.
Sure.
It's not a
And
religious.
Japan is a great example.
Yeah, it's the finest example. Allah always gives us a neutral entity so that we can actually, get rid of our biases and come into, the real light. So this is one angle of looking at it. But what I really require from
Yours sounds motivational.
really,
Yeah.
well, let me demotivate you. Hold on. Let me just get to work. No, you know what? This is the overseas Muslims better be motivated because you can understand the meaning of these words because you've experienced them in Pakistan or Bangladesh. They won't even be able to understand or experience the reality of the concept we're talking about.
Bilkul.
There's a difference in the IQ.
Yeah.
That's why I'm relying on the overseas, diaspora of, the last 2 generations. They did their job. I mean, they came in to, drive cabs, to have 3 jobs a week, so that boys like you can gain their acumen.
Are you telling us to go back to motherland?
No. I'm trying to tell you never to go back, gain power here, build structures in Bangladesh and Pakistan. You know what I'm saying? You need to see, let me just finish this political capital. The concept.
What can I do in Bangladesh without the bribing and the lobbying of Awami League?
I'll tell you what to do first of all. We in overseas Muslims need to connect every single person together. I'm talking about everybody counts.
Uh-huh.
Even if Pakistan and Bangladesh do not connect with us, doesn't really matter. You need to connect with the American youth, the Canadian youth, the European youth, especially the Scandinavian youth. Mm-hmm. You have no idea. That's gold. There's very few, but Scandinavia is training them. Now, you want to compare Japan with anything else, you got to compare Japan with Sweden and, Norway.
Yeah, Norway.
I'm thinking Norway's top of the food chain right now in terms of the way they've actually created the social structures. I know you and I do not really agree to, the philosophy behind those structures, but the performance of that structure is flawless. Okay? Now, just like that, those platforms are enabling the Muslim mind. If he's actually, given proper knowledge of politics and how to dominate, they do not have to dominate Norway. They have to enter the politics of Norway and call the shots around the globe. That's
from Norway.
From Norway. People from Norway are calling the shots in Bangladesh and Pakistan. Okay. Some people in Sweden are literally writing the foreign policy of Pakistan as we speak. That's how it works. There are enough people in the Biden cabinet, 37 to be exact, who are actually calling the next aid to go to Israel. That's good work, good job. And that's how people should behave as community, right? Muslims are not doing that. I'm not going to diss them for doing their job right. I mean, there's a big, problem between me versus them in terms of the, or whatever's going on because of their philosophy or whatever's going on.
And a non-Muslim might be watching this thinking, well, is Sahil proposing that one day the Muslims will be writing the foreign policy of our countries, sitting in Dhaka or in Islamabad? Do they want?
No,
is that what they
they'll
want?
be sitting in England for the next 50 years writing the policies of their countries, but they'll be very Muslimish policies.
Okay.
Yeah, if you're a non-Muslim listening to this and thinking, yeah, that is the plan, man. That's exactly what I want. I mean, it's not a secret. I'm not from the Freemasons, Illuminati. This all game, all of this. This whole thing is very, very clear. I mean, I believe in what I'm actually selling. I think this is the rule of Allah Azza wa Jalla. It's for the world. It's not just for the Muslims. But starting with the Muslims, if you cannot get your own house in order, why the hell would they actually even listen to how right or how good looking our policies are? So, we need to make them work wherever they're supposed to work. And first and foremost, Bengalis are going to listen to you way more than the Koreans, because you're more relevant and they're really aspiring to be you right now. So I'm talking about 30 odd million Muslims around the world, which came from these 3 countries only. Okay. Yep. And if they can connect, and then the Arabian diaspora, which right now is growing in number,
yes. Yeah.
We can connect overseas and then grow our kids into a single network. Then we call the shots in more countries than you can imagine right now, not just 57.
I know you have this IMS system.
Yeah, that is the purpose.
But are you talking about top-down or bottom-up or a bit of both in terms of change?
No, well, they both have to work side by side.
So you're not one or the other?
No. They have. See, this is what happened to Pakistan. It's not going to work if you're going to choose either one of them. You have to understand the power of both of them and the power of integrating both of them.
That's a very difficult task there.
It is difficult, but you know what? Politics is going to
mix the gradual with the radical.
Yeah, we need the radicals. Otherwise, it's not going to have enough motivation for the for the long haul.
So why do we need the gradual?
Because we need to maintain. It's not just for you and me. We need our great grandkids to actually reap the.
So how do you bring them together?
That's where the political structures.
So I want you to explain IMS in light of this. For ummatic Islamic revival, whether it be intellectual, political, military, whatever it may be, there are those who say it will all happen when Imam Mahdi comes.
Yeah, I'm not for that.
There'll be those who say, well, hold on, we've been dealt a particular hand. That hand is the global order of nation states, and we need to deal with this system so we can gradually...
Skeptics.
Most
of them are.
There are those who say, heck this, we'll just take power ourselves. We'll fight them, we'll fight the existing stooges, or we'll work to do military coups, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Then there's those who say, well, hold on, we're not an ummah worthy of victory. We're perpetually sinful. We're not worthy of this victory. Fix ourselves up first. Allah will not change the situation of a people until they change it amongst themselves. So you have this kind of 4 or 5 ways of thinking. 2
more I can think of, but
what's the other 2?
The guy who actually believes that this is, the exact opposite of what you should do. But then we have case studies where Muslims, regardless of, whether they're practicing or not, are in power. In every country.
Yeah.
Especially our countries. Actually, it's the worst possible example of a Muslim, but he's the best example of how to get in power. You know what I'm saying? So the case studies, are speaking for themselves.
So where does IMS fit into those?
I'll tell you, IMS is, I train and I'm trying to...
And it stands for?
Islamic Messaging System. It's a propaganda machine so that we can get the right sort of concepts developed for intellectual and psychological warfare. If it's not an intellectual warfare worthy concept, let's just, don't waste time on it. Because we need to raise the IQ, that's intellectual warfare. We need to raise the IQ of everybody. Okay. Psychological warfare is about tuning the behavior of people, making that, next 2-3 steps, be taken by all of those classes of people. Now, whatever classes that you mentioned right now, they exist, but look at them from the eye of a chess player. Some of them are the enemy. They're going to be fighting against you. But some of them aren't. People who are actually, emotionally attached with the religion, they will be a part of your board. They will be part of your team. And you can actually use them instead of just fighting against them or quarreling and wasting your time and energy and actually distributing power and focus. Use them. We need to, polish the ego of a few groups so that they can do whatever they're doing. For example, those classic Sufis are never going to be into it. Most of the Muslims trained in our countries are into Sufistic, personal tazkiyah and nafs philosophy only. They'll be like, what? The more you're going to go into power, the more chances that you're not going to make it in the day of judgment. So let's just, leave the power for these kind of, greedy people. And that's the bigger problem I'm trying to solve.
You get Salafis like that as well, who are also of this thinking. Maybe not as much as the Sufis.
No. I'm just saying Sufism actually divorces politics for the sake of religion. Salafis don't do that. Salafis think it's khuruj if you do it.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, there's a spectrum of them, but yes, most definitely.
So, well, I don't want to just use the word Salafi. There's another word for it. But what I'm saying is, regular Muslim is in this sort of casting.
Yeah.
Now, we know the casting, but I treat them as pawns and queens and bishops and rooks. Because we need to use all of them. Anybody who's got anything to do with Islam is calling himself Muslim, other than the fact that he's just got an Allah locket and he just does everything else, and he just thinks that, I'm not going to be able to do anything about it, and I make sure that nobody does. That's the only person who's not on the board. Otherwise, everybody who is at any level trying to activate his family, his sons and daughters into coming into knowledge, and I mean, that's just about everybody that we can actually use.
So you're saying all those differences can actually be positively utilized?
They are. Most of them are being used by somebody. Otherwise,
from the Democrats to the Jihadis to the Khilafis to the Hizbis to the Brelvis to the Deobandis to the Ikhwanis, you're saying they all?
Well, 3 of them are in the same flank anyway, the Ikhwanis and the Jihadis and the Hizbis. They're in the same flank, right? So they're your forerunners. We need to tune the movement with all of them combined.
But they have deep methodological differences.
Yeah, we can. Technique is the only flaw that we've already had. We are suffering from wrong techniques. But intent and, the emotionality of all of these people, they're all, connected to each other. These are the only 3 radicals that would die for the other ones. The other ones wouldn't do anything with these. You know what I'm saying? So I see power in both of them. But that's not what I don't even want to tag them. I want to understand, I want our youth to understand that these are pieces on the pawn. They're not the enemy. They're all usable pieces. And when overseas Muslims, or even Muslims in our local lands, come into those Bengalis and Pakistanis, come into the right acumen and intellect, and the overseas come into the political power, you got yourself a new Israel. You know what I'm saying? And we can make a new Israel anywhere we want to. Because of the numbers that both of our countries have, we can make it sooner than they can. I mean, we don't need any Balfour. We are Balfour, it's sitting right here.
Some would be watching this thinking, Sahil Bhai is very optimistic. And whilst we appreciate and acknowledge fully that the prophetic standpoint and mindset is one of optimism and one of husn al-dhan in Allah, Allah will make us victorious. It's not a case of if, more of a case of when and all that stuff. And we fully subscribe to that. But the reality has a different story, Sahil Bhai. It can be argued. If we look at the economic state of Pakistan, if we look at the internal turmoil, if we look at the list of issues that we have, its reliance on external aid, whilst the optimism is something that we would embrace and we want to subscribe to and incorporate to change our political destiny and that of the Ummah, let's be honest about it. Whether you look at Pakistan, whether you look at Bangladesh, whether you look at any of the majority of the Muslim majority countries outside of the Gulf, they are in tatters. They're a mess. Yeah. There is no autonomy. Forget about even people moving or shifting for the sake of Allah. They're barely moving and moving for the sake of their own people. So what I'm trying to posit to you is,
no, I got it.
How do you reconcile prophetic optimism with a daunting reality?
Currently, landscape. See, understand how the group moves. The whole group is moving in a very peculiar pattern. It's not chaos. Okay, it looks like, because when we go into a picture, the whole thing gets blurry. It's not actually chaos. This is a classic movement of a group which is devout of power. If a group divorces the concept of gaining power, then this happens. This is natural. You pick out the history of human beings, and any group which actually does not have a doctrine which energizes and enforces and endorses getting into power and dominate with the system of morality, of any kind of morality. We have the absolute morality in the Quran.
Yeah.
Then, you got yourself a game. And I don't want to, push people to think that, I've got the solution. No, I'm just saying, I understand how the behavior works. Solution is in the Quran. I mean, it's a given. It's a presupposition that if people do not understand or believe that the Quran is a political solution, then yeah, you can turn off this podcast right now. But people who know that Prophet ﷺ did this, Sahabas followed it up, and the human behavior took over. We needed more people in the right places to maintain or herd this whole group into maintaining that movement towards, going forth for the next 200, 300, 400 years. We couldn't, and we're never going to do that unless, of course, we understand how psychology works. This is what group psychology does. Not just Muslims. You pick out any nation right now, even Christians. The whole church is crying about whatever we're crying about. Two priests talking about, whatever the Bible Belt is going through in Milwaukee right now. Literally, word to word, they're going to be talking about the same thing. But you know what? They're suffering from Matthew 22. Somebody wrote it, and I know why Matthew would write it. He was a tax collector. That's the only time Bible talks about money.
Render to Caesar what belongs to Caesar.
Yeah, he was talking about the taxes. He was not even talking about powers. But, okay, let's assume that they know what they're talking about, okay, because there's a little too much going on there. But their book is stopping them. Our book is saying, وَأَعِدُّ لَهُمْ مَسْتَطَعْتُم مِّن قُوَّةٍ. Their book is saying, leave the power to Caesar and just do your prayer. You know what I'm saying? So,
I was just saying, hold on to the book with strength.
Yeah, not just strength, but define the strength and maintain it. Maintain it. So this group of Muslims in the current landscape is behaving literally according to natural law of human psychology. This is what they require is the definition of at the source. Muslims have to be trained into coming into dominant power, which is politics. You know what I'm saying? And competence, which is knowledge set. And of course, moral correctness, so that we can maintain it to the next 3-4 generations. Because politics is going to be here regardless of whether evil or good groups are going to stay. Because politics is a natural, innate disposition of the man.
It's the management of mankind's affairs. It's always going to be
innate.
there.
It's gonna be, I mean, even if you don't want it, someone's going to take it.
It's always going to be there.
Yeah. So why are we not using the Quran to actually, politicize and, combine and make sure the structures are morally correct and justifiable under the Sira? This is what Umar al-Khattab did. Umar al-Khattab raised a lot of alarm. If you read the Sira in his last days, Umar al-Khattab, to me, is the last, glimmer of the real system. Because the last days of Umar al-Khattab, he's keep on warning. And, Huzaifa bin Jaman, when he talks about the death of Umar al-Khattab, he says that the door will be broken, not opened. Okay, and this actually shows that we're going to break the system in the last, the way we're going to actually deal with the last, the way we're going to interrupt the reign of Umar al-Khattab. That's human behavior, that's human psychology. So we need to be really clear as to how to create a structure and maintain it. These are the two things. Now I can quote case studies of Muslims and non-Muslims who created structures from these 4 pillars. Actually, they created it with less than 4 pillars, from the Greeks to the Romans to the Persians to the Muslims, and in the recent few hundred years of worth of history. But unless you have these 4 pillars, you're not going to be able to maintain it. Now, right now, what I see is guys your age, girls your age, they can understand what I'm saying.
I thought we're the same age.
Yeah, I'm talking about in the 20s. I'm assuming you're in your 20s. Right
20s? I'm 35.
Awesome. So, okay, well, you carry yourself really well then. So what I'm saying is, boys and girls in their teens and 20s, they need to be trained into the fact that unless you're in the power, you're not a good Muslim, sorry. See, now that's the change of definition. Because the definition is literally against this statement for the last few hundred years. Mm-hmm. And I personally believe that it started with Yazid bin Muawiyah. I personally believe that. Because the definition that they're actually pumping into our blood of what is khuruj and what is not, Hussein al-Islam doesn't even apply. It doesn't even apply on Hussein al-Islam. According to their definition, current definition, Hussein al-Islam becomes a khariji, na'udhu billah. You know what I'm saying? So this is something which is against the very essence of Islam. Umar al-Khattab, why do you think I keep quoting Umar al-Khattab to everywhere I go? Because he represents dominance. He represents the political might of Islam. He represents a philosophy that you need to keep the power to make sure you can herd the whole ummah under the rule of Allah.
Let me just quickly come in there, because one of the biggest criticisms internally amongst some who see themselves as traditionalists would say that this whole revivalist struggle, irrespective of what group, what maslak, what movement, doesn't matter. But this kind of ummatic desire to come into power and politics and have your own state and all this stuff. This is actually a post-colonial mindset where we are actually reflecting that of the colonized. I'm telling you, there's some like...
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah,
I get that. I get that a lot.
Al-Halak and many of these others have been cited by saying, look, there's no such thing as an Islamic state. You might get, and you're really talking about an Islamic nation state. You have tradition like Hamza Yusuf and many others who have said that, look, this whole thing about power, you've misunderstood it. Allah will give you power. It's a means, it's not the end. Yeah? Meaning it's not the end goal. If Allah gives you...
Do your tazkiyah, power is going to come to you. That's what they believe in.
Yeah, but so the whole kind of, once you're ready for it, Allah will give it, but it's not the sole objective.
They don't understand the human behavior then. I'll tell you the two hadiths. We know the whole seerah and how, from Abu Bakr Siddiq to Ali bin Abi Talib, the whole, system was carried forth. And then we ruined the hell out of the system. After Ali bin Abi Talib, we know what happened, and
to kingship and family.
No, it's not about the order of management. It's about the plight of the people. Okay. Now this is going to happen again. See, the Prophet ﷺ is teaching us psychology. We're just not reading into it. When Isa ibn Maryam is going to come in, he's going to reign the planet literally through his kingdom.
4 years.
Okay, his kingdom. Okay, it's monarchy, and after 40 years of the departure, the real death of Isa ibn Maryam, people are going to go into so much of a chaos, then Allah is going to lift the Quran. It's like, no more for this. No more for this, human being are not worthy of this. And then the Day of Judgment is going to come. Day of Judgment cannot come even if there is a single Muslim on the planet. That means even after the kingdom of Isa ibn Maryam, and every single household will be Muslim.
Yep.
People are still going to go out of Islam, so much so that no one is going to remain a Muslim. This is classic human psychology being taught by our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Understand how human beings behave. Now, what happens after the death of Isa ibn Maryam? The power goes to the regular folks. So if the power is with the right people, it is going to, bear the fruit. This is what happened to Abu Bakr Siddiq and Umar Khattab and, Osman Ghani and Ali bin Abi Talib. The right people had power. We had the right sort of, structural, maintenance going on. So power is necessary. Tazkiyah is going to maintain the power. And I believe that Tazkiyah nafs is the ultimate purpose, like Hamza Yusuf. But I believe that you need to make sure that everybody can do tazkiyah. You know what I'm saying? Otherwise, you're just going to do it for yourself. The politician's job is to make sure the system is tazkiyah friendly for everybody, every Muslim, because there is no compulsion to bring people into Islam. So the system has to be there, but the ease of tazkiyah can only come from the system. For example, Scotland. Right now, I just came from Glasgow. I'm not just talking about Glasgow. Even Pakistan is a classic case study here. Okay, let's just take Pakistan first one, so that people will not think that I'm being biased. But the classical Islamic laws cannot be practiced in Pakistan because the people in power do not understand Islam, even though they would want to. For example, the law of inheritance. You cannot inherit your property to your grandson. Okay, you have to inherit to your son. But in Pakistan, you have to, if your son is dead. Okay. Where is this sense coming from? This sense is coming directly from Scandinavia. This sense is defined on paper in a legislation, okay, and so on and so forth. I'm just giving you an example. Scotland, the RME, you have to include all. I mean, I was coming from Glasgow, and there was a prayer room on the airport, and I was like, awesome, man, and I went to the prayer room. There's a prayer mat. And then there's this big murti right there.
The multi-faith room.
Yeah, I know. And it's not just that prayer room in the airport. It's the schools in Scotland. Okay? Who's calling the shots in that? Hamza Yusuf? The other Hamza Yusuf? Ironic that, we're talking about Hamza
Yusuf.
Yeah. No. Hamza Yusuf is not calling the shots in this. He's a poor puppet of the system. The power structures are coming from somewhere else. And you'll be amazed as to how some countries and some people in those countries are calling those power structures, energizing the power structure, maintaining it. per se, because they didn't come up with it. A lot of people come together. It's like more of a deep state concept of where the power actually is, conceptualized. But they're maintained by people like these.
Do you accept that there is a deep state in Pakistan and many other Muslim states?
I think if there is a deep state, which there is, then Pakistan is one of the many that they better be affecting Pakistan. Otherwise, it's not deep enough.
Okay, but is a deep state necessary for survival?
Well, it had to be, because this is why I believe that our Islamic system has to be established. There is no other solution. There is no antimatter for this deep state matter. Okay. There has, because Islamic system is the only system that goes from top down and bottom up at every single element. The audit is for every single element in the system, from people to processes. Deep state is the only thing that you cannot audit, because there's no one man that you can audit. Okay? There's no one group of people. There's no one country. There's no one law. There's so much going on that even if you take out a few, they're going to be a lot more than just, so you cannot just, pick out one.
It's a machine.
The machine is an oversimplified way of saying it, because we all know it's a very fluid concept. Islam, the system of Islam, the political installation, and the understanding of how human beings behave coming together is the only antidote for this deep state concept. And you think, I don't know what's going to happen even if we do establish the Islamic system in any one of these countries or the world. All hell is going to break loose, because we're actually poking the bear right now, right there, right on the face, actually. So
can you see this happening without little to no bloodshed, Saeed Bhai? Because there could be.
No, there will be blood. There will be blood. And you know what? I've got a book backing it up, because if there is blood, I know what to do about this.
What's the book?
The Quran. There's the only book with enough aggression, assertiveness, and absolutely no inferiority complex of the reader. It is the Ahkami book. It is not a book with pleas, no requests. We need a book which commands. We are the only nation with a book that actually commands. I mean, imagine the superior psychology that it takes for a Muslim to implement the book. I mean, there are no pleas and requests. So you have a book, you can go to any sort of power, which the Sahabas did, and which our youth can. But we need a transitory period where they can actually have competence and political network. Otherwise, they won't be able to get that sort of an assertiveness in their speech. That's why I'm relying on English Muslims and American and youth like you, because the Pakistanis and the Bengalis are trained not to be assertive. That's the problem, actually that's something that they utilize on this Hasina woman. Okay, ironic that her name is Hasina, and the Pakistani political elite. They're literally feeding off this inferiority complex of a regular man's assumption that he's bigger than what he actually is. They're actually laughing at the fact that there is no genie, man. You're the one who creates that genie, and you bow to that genie. I don't even have that genie. Just because I carry myself like this, you actually put 10 inches on my height, and just because you're suffering, and they just feed off of it.
On Twitter, there's this on Muslim Twitter, there's this stereotype / meme of, it's only Desi Muslims or Desi origin Muslims who always think about Khilafat, Islamic change. It's only these guys that think of these things. The average Arab or average Maghrebi or average Turk doesn't think like this. I know that's a caricaturing of reality. I know that is a caricature.
Yeah, that's the exact opposite of actually. Desis don't even think about it. Yeah. Turks are still hungry for it. We were thinking 2024 is going to be the big...
Yeah, that's it. You're going to be the year.
Ikhwan Muslimin was not a Desi movement. Sayyid Qutb is not from, Miyawali.
Yeah. Or Sylhet.
Yeah.
Bringing the podcast to a close, there's a lot you've presented in terms of change. Mm-hmm. You've proposed the 4 elements of that change, that if it's unlocked and it synergizes, then inshallah we can access potential that we're still unaware of. There's a heavy reliance, by the sounds of it, on Western diaspora communities.
On the IQ. Yeah, we can actually have that in our own lands. But until we have that, we see, let's call a spade. English land still calls the shots on a lot more political structures than...
Yeah, Anglosphere, Western Anglosphere still calls the shots.
Yeah, I mean, the Age of Enlightenment and the First, Second World War. These are the 2 events that actually, has done whatever it's done. The landscape is set by these two big events. Now, anybody who's on this side of the flank will naturally have to use these flanks, good or bad, right or wrong. I mean, you're English. No matter what you do, you're going to have to use the system. Now, you can use England just like any Cambridge professor is using Cambridge for Israel, for any amendment in the UN, or any policy coming from the UN or from America. Okay? Let's assume that, we had those kind of professors, with the power of amending, constitutions here and there. My God, I'm just talking about putting in numbers. You know what? I was doing the math on because of a few books I'm reading. There's less than 13 people who were behind the whole Polish, German, well, not German, Austrian, clusters getting into consent with getting Chamberlain down and Churchill up. Yeah. Like 13. It just takes the power of
World War II.
Yeah. So it's that simple. I'm not saying, 13. We need the 13 warriors of Islam. No, we need 130,000. You know what I'm saying? Because we're trying to take care of not a tiny little land of Israel, which I don't want to use the word. I am talking about a very big model in Bangladesh or Pakistan or wherever, or in Indonesia, could be anywhere, so that people can actually understand that, if you can work with that, it's just like, the potential difference. This is how the electric current flows, from high potential to low potential. If you can create a high potential there, you think people were against the system of Islam at the time of the Prophet Islam? Everybody liked it. Even if they were the enemies, they knew, this is naturally making a lot of sense. We would rather have our kids and daughters in that system where they're protected and laws are right there. They're being practiced by every single element of the whole food chain. And people who are not in power would rather not be in power because they're kind of fruit that they're reaping from the people in power because of the moral correctness. This is again, since I have gone through the detail, I'm a Muslim, I understand the Quran and the Seerah, I can sense that, I can smell the fruit. I still haven't tasted it. I haven't seen the whole system in play. Imagine when people were actually tasting the fruit. That's why the big age of Islam started from a city. The age of Islam started from a city, not because Umar Khattab had a shimmering sword. People actually understood the system. They knew that these laws are actually, the Jews themselves said the finest possible time that in the 3,000 years were under the reigns of Islam. How come? It's not a joke. It's not something which I'm coming in an anecdotal case. It's 800 year. It's
written in their own books.
Yeah. So they can have their golden years, and we can't. Because it's utopian, it's a dream of Sahil Adeem, it's adolescence of a boy from Pakistan who just read too much Maududi or comes from the
You just described the memes. That is what's claimed.
Yeah, I know. They call me the second coming of Maududi. A self imposed belief system of Islam, or they don't use the word Khilafah as much as I would like them to, but they just, because I don't even use this word Khilafah. I use the word system. That's something they would understand better, because I don't care whether it's a king or a guy or comes from democracy or whatever. It has to come from a power wherever the structures of power currently exist.
So according to this envisaged revivalist system, could it come from the OIC, the Arab League?
No, Arabs, I'm sorry. They've, they're not in anywhere close to, I think OIC, I would rather go to Paris to get more results from OIC, I mean, it's that simple. I mean, it's literally, I picked that city for...
Why can't they be a pawn in your game, in your chess game?
They are, their kids are.
But they aren't.
No, they are. I'll tell you what. We both should know. You're here. You're from Hyde Park, and everything's going on. Everyone knows. I would rather have Shamsi sitting there, and I'm going to tell him, dude, you use Islam and use the word Aqidah so that youth cannot actually mobilize themselves into politics. Are you kidding me with this? Salman Farsi can, straight up criticize Umar Khattab face to face. But no, we can't criticize, our leaders. That's called khuruj, it's only the job of the scholars. And, Imam Kaaba is actually inaugurating the cinema in Jeddah.
Crazy.
I mean, it's crazy. And you think, but I'm not committing any khuruj because I didn't give bayah to, MBS or anything. I mean, I can talk about it. That's even in alliance with your own, Aqidah as well. I mean.
But why can't bodies like the OIC and the Arab League be part of the pawns for positive change that you've mentioned earlier on?
They are designed to bow. So if you get power from the outside, they're going to bow to it. Don't worry about it. I mean, it's their Aqidah. You know that?
Yeah.
It's their Aqidah.
So what you're actually saying is then this proposed system can't coexist with the nation state then?
In the transition, it doesn't really matter. Even if there are lines drawn on the map.
Okay.
NATO is a single body, eh? European Union is a single body, but there are lines drawn between Germany and France. It works. So we can. Say, I'm giving a lot of hints to the kids who are aspiring to, see, I'm talking to that boy or a girl, but, boys can really get it because, man is designed for power, okay? Our psychology comes into a dopamine cycle for power. I don't want you to think of Bill Gates or Elon Musk or Steve Jobs going from Budapest to Baltimore in his plane trying to do his commercial math of how many dollars. I want Muslims to be traveling in different streets of the world and in their own cities and others, in attending different conferences where they're going to call the shots on how the globe is going to move. This is real power. This is what Islam is demanding. This is when I'm envisioning for the Muslim youth, I'm envisioning those meetings where you're actually going to be writing policy, which is going to cause not millions, but billions of people to come into correctness. And people will understand how powerful your pen becomes. Okay? So this is literally what, Sahabas were doing. Like, as literal as I'm going to make it. I mean, Umar Khattab, Ali bin Abi Talib, in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, they were being trained to make sure that, this power is maintained properly. So this is what every Prophet ﷺ does. 124,000 Prophet ﷺ came in, took the power, implemented it, installed it, gave it to their people, and they maintained it as much as they could, and then
until the need for another messenger came and so forth.
They relieved themselves out of the power. Sometimes they even divorced it. In the Quran, Allah Azza wa Jal literally says, then I gave this to the Jews and then to the Christians, the Nasara, and then they threw it on the floor. When I say Aqamut Tawrat, they just don't do Aqamut Tawrat. They just do Tawrat. Aqamut Tawrat is to install and implement Tawrat. Aqamut Tawrat is not, because Allah in the I'm talking about Surah Maida, verse 68 here. Allah is addressing the Ahlul Kitab. So it's not that they don't believe in the book. Allah is saying, oh, Ahlul Kitab, implement the Torah. Aqamut Tawrat. So it's not about, them believing in the Torah. They already believe. That's why they call Ahlul Kitab. Okay, read the verse and I'll tell you, there's so many. I'm just talking about this psychological sense and the structure the Quran builds inside our visions, in our minds. So I need boys to come into power, and your pens and your words should matter to every country in the world. At least start with your own, and then some, and then all. This is how some people are still running the globe. And why can't Muslims do that? And even if it comes down to belief versus belief, a principle disagreement, it's okay. We know the solution to that. It's okay. We have different pieces on the board.
My final question to you is that there's been a lot of appeal.
Before I let you, just hold on to that. As soon as we start playing this game, you'll be amazed as to how new pieces are going to come in. People are waiting for these sort of Muslims to come into power and eloquence and competence. The world should be competence first. First we become competent, then we'll become powerful. That's how natural order is. As soon as you're going to become competent and you're going to talk about the word power, all of a sudden new pieces are going to start to structure themselves on the board. And then you're not going to have these kind of castes. You're going to have literally non-Muslims coming into alliance. That's when you're going to understand the meaning of the hadith. When Imam Mahdi is going to be coming, a lot of other forces are going to come in for give their allegiance to Imam Mahdi from the Jews and the Christians. This is how it works. I mean, I started to come to go to Australia and in England. I'm just talking about these 4 pillars, right? And the local community is really running towards me. And those resourceful people with kids, their parents, they understand.
MashaAllah.
Everybody wants their kids to be, competent, educated, financially independent, politically sound, and, implementing all of that with the purpose of the Quran. I mean, why wouldn't they? I mean, I'm not saying anything which any father or mother wouldn't want. I want your kids to be competent and financially secure and politically savvy. What's wrong with that? If I were a rabbi or a Jewish man saying that in Israel, they would be sending me to Oxford or Cambridge or Harvard to propagate that so that overseas Jewish...
to mobilize yourself and put it into use.
That's the word I use, to mobilize the youth. Now, you can understand it. Bengalis won't in Dhaka. They won't be able to understand the real meaning.
So that's my last question to you. Your advice and your appeal appears to be a lot centered around, on an IQ basis, maybe on a financial basis, the Western diaspora. What about the average village boy who goes to college? The average Pakistani or Indian or Bangladeshi who is actually poor and things aren't looking great for him in terms of further studies, financial stability. Let's be honest about it. If you look at Bangladesh and Pakistan, just two examples because it's our heritage, it's our background. The average banda is poor. The average banda, life's not looking great for him on a material sense. He'll go to college, he may have a laugh or two, play a bit of cricket with his friends. I'm talking about especially in the rural areas, not about city boys, town boys, because I'm talking about there's a huge demographic of those who don't have access to the things that we have access to. What's their job in this game? What's their job? What's their role in the revival?
Okay, the solution is in the Quran. Okay, it's a little tough to swallow for a lot of people who are going to listen to this, but generally Muslims are poor because of the lack of system of Islam. Okay, the Quran actually talks about it directly in these very words. فَوْقِهِمْ وَتَحْتِهِمْ. Things are going to come to you. The rahmah is going to come to you. Resources is going to come to you if you implement the system. Because if you're not going to implement the system, don't rely on me then. You're on your own. Okay, that's the baseline. But current landscape, let me tell you how it's going to work. Most of the people who are not poor, or who are not rich enough, do not have any resources. These are not the people who are going to be able to do much. I call a person who's poor in my plan who has no knowledge. Because there will be poor people regardless of whatever system you're ever going to run. Even if Isa ibn Maryam is going to come here and you're going to see the landscape, there will be the socioeconomic hierarchical dispositions, and classifications. Well, that is what Allah is saying, that, some people will be tested with poverty, some people will not. Some people will be tested with money.
Yeah.
So I'm not talking about the individual. I'm talking about, the whole group moving together. We need the poor people. We need the rich people because we don't really look at them from this perspective. But we should judge the people who do not have knowledge because it does not require money to read the Quran and understand it. If anything, most of the prophets never had money.
And their followers were mainly poor.
Yeah, most of the followers,
poor.
Most of the followers didn't have any resource. Some of the people with resource were appreciated so that we need them. Okay, but that was not up to them to become resourceful. Otherwise, everyone would be resourceful.
Abu Bakr, Uthman bin Affan,
and Abdurrahman bin Auf, and there's so many, but not so many, but but they're enough so that we can understand that resources is required. When Uthman bin Affan gave in Ghazwat Tabuk, first draft, second draft of gold, the Prophet said, Uthman can do whatever now. You're free of anything. I mean, this is imagine these on if we were to be said to any other human being, from here on, Uthman can do whatever. So it is appreciated. وَعِدُّ لَهُمْ مَسْتَطَعْتُم مِّن قُوَّةٍ means politics. Politics requires money. Jinnah said, give me some bullets of silver and I'm going to win you this war. I mean, we know, that's what I'm saying. We need Muslim youth to come into power in terms of awesome careers, big company, good jobs, politically well-placed jobs, and making sure that they're respected in their fields as well. And whoever is respected in his field, naturally is going to get money. However, the general mass in
Muslim
remote areas in Pakistan or in Bangladesh, those are the people dependent on those metro youths who actually were responsible for those remote placed poor people. But they don't even realize that, they're responsible. People in Islamabad, Lahore, Karachi, or Dhaka, or Chittagong, or whatever is a big city. I don't.
You mentioned all the big ones.
Yeah. Those boys and girls are responsible for those remote people's resources. They just don't know it yet. That's what I'm saying. We need to make them responsible. If I know I'm responsible for 20,000 people, I'm naturally going to be, studying for it, learning for it, even first of all, yearning for it. And then I'm going to learn for it. And then become competent enough to actually do something about it. But we're not letting them think on these lines because we've changed the definition of a Muslim, that you do your own tazkiyah and that's it. You, nafsi, nafsi, nafsi. This is not Islam. This is akhirah. Islam in this planet is anfusana, all of us together. And this is why I'm not talking about just Dhaka and Chittagong youth. I'm talking about the Lahori and Karachi youth responsible for remote areas in your Bangladesh, because we are still in the same family. And unless we do that sort of a connection and network, this is not going to work. My plan only works when everybody comes together. And enough people, I'm not saying every literal person, enough people from every place come together as a network. We call it the TDP now. Actually, I'm officially calling it the Teenage Development Program. From Melbourne to, Houston to London to Manchester, wherever the big cities are, all the teenagers are supposed to be getting at least 8 skills to come up to gain points in these 4 pillars, measurably. And their pillars better be visible globally, because if it's not global, it's not political. And if it's not global, it's not going to have that financial independence, because if I have 200,000 people in my network, literally, with the same purpose, I can launch a product and I'm going to be a millionaire. You know what I'm saying? But it's not going to be, a commercial plan. I'm just going to have to establish this so that our kids, when they speak in any conference in California or Melbourne or London, everyone in the world would know, how competent this boy is. He's done his homework. He's not just aware of what the global policy is or public policy is. He is going to make sure, right resources are triggered to make that change. This is how any politician works in Geneva, in Paris or in Washington. These people are doing the right thing in the right place, not for the right reasons. We have the right reasons, which is called Islam.
How many more cities you got left as part of your tour?
Oh, I just began. I have 6 more. I'm going to do 1 more in London, then Newcastle, Birmingham, Manchester, Bradford, and Southampton. And there's a talk in Nottingham. I have to do the London School of Economics again. They just called me again for another session. So this is first draft England. Then I have to go to Oslo and Sweden and probably Copenhagen, because that's practically where my family is. So it's after that I'm done with the European thing.
And when would you see us again?
I just got a call from Birmingham that, this is not going to work. We cannot just, because this one session is not going to be enough. Birmingham is literally Pakistan. You know what it says? You're not going to find a Gora here, okay?
Not in Small Heath or Alam Rock, anywhere like that.
Yeah, no. I did not know that. So I'll have to do plan a return, a sequel with a totally different spin, because I need to give some tasks, connect them, and come back and follow up whether these kids are, or parents, because I give tasks to parents and youth, different tasks. And I haven't done any youth program yet. I went to Australia for 2 different kind of programs, one for the general mass, one particularly for the youth. Here I haven't really come up with the youth program because it was a 30-day schedule and still every day was packed. I have to come back for parenting and youth programming. Inshallah. But I need to cover, back home, Toronto. I need to go to America. There are 27 booked sessions in America, which I left for the last, because I need to cover all of this. Once all of them are together, you have yourself your first draft network. But these will be parents.
Very busy.
Oh, inshallah. No, this is just the beginning. If, God willing, if I am going to live that long, I'm going to keep following it up so that, someone's going to take up the next tour. I don't have to come. If I'm doing the whole tour all over again, then, it's not working. I need to get boys and girls to come in and, take the baton.
Well, for selfish reasons, I would want you to visit again so we can host you again.
Oh, inshallah. No, I'd love to.
Yeah,
of course. Yeah. And I need you specifically. You have no idea how much of a, use I have for people in your position, because you are in a position of power. See, now this is something which is a responsibility. And this is something which is why you become so alluring, because this podcast alone in 20 sessions, you know, you can't even measure the weight of this. You know, this is how big of a responsibility this is. So we have to be really careful in choosing our words so that, you know, you can trigger the right. Because, you know, it's your neurons in your head that are the strings. You're the puppeteer of the next generation. You're literally puppeteering how the next generation is going to move. This is the power of the microphone.
You're telling everyone our secrets, Sahil bhai.
Oh God, silly.
Inshallah.
But seriously, you know what I'm saying? So this is, if you imagine if Islam is, you know, pouring through your neurons into the next generation, this is literally what the microphone is doing.
Of course,
inshallah. So this is how I think of all of this landscape. This is how, you know, these people of this stature become so important. Inshallah, may Allah take the real task. May Allah use us for His, you know, the bigger purpose of Islam, inshallah. And our kids. And this is the job. This is the job. This is the only job. Everything else is secondary.
Sahil bhai, Jazakallah khairan for your time. It was an honor having you on.
Oh, are you kidding me? The honor is all mine. Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure.
May Allah bless you and preserve you, my dear brother. Brothers and sisters and friends, I hope you all enjoyed today's episode as much as I did. A lot to unpick, a lot to think about, a lot to ponder on as youth and as parents. If you like this episode, do remember to click subscribe to the 5 Pillars YouTube channel, and you can find all 3 seasons, including this episode, on all the major audio platforms. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.